7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
Oh, this you crazy mother.
Okay, so welcome back to my channel. So as you guys know, the Umbrella Academy premiered its second season yesterday on Netflix, and I will be watching and recapping the episodes. So I'm going to try to get through these as quickly as possible. It's 10 episodes. I was going to try to do 2 episodes at a time, but I wanted to get through this first episode, which is quite detailed. I mean, it's kind of difficult to do that sometimes when you have so many characters and so many moving parts, but we're going to try to do this as quickly as possible. So, The Umbrella Academy, Season 2, Episode 1. So, the last season ended with the Earth being destroyed and number 5 teleporting them out of the auditorium. And so, of course, this first episode picks up where that left off, and you kind of see where they all ended up. So, the first to appear was Klaus and Ben. Now, of course, Ben is still very much dead, but because Klaus can talk to the dead, it's like they're glued to each other, right? So Klaus and Ben appear in this alley, and of course, you know, the portal is still open, so he's still expecting more of his siblings to come through, but that never happened. So now he's kind of like, okay, what the hell is going on? You can tell by the cars and the music that's playing and the way people are dressed that he's not in Kansas anymore. He's not in his time, and he's kind of confused. And so they look at a magazine and they realize that they are in Dallas, Texas, and it's 1960. Okay, so the second person to come through is Allison. She appeared. Now they all appear in Dallas, Texas, in the same alley, but at different times. So Allison appears. It is 1961, and what you saw was this guy. What she briefly saw when she appeared was this guy who took a photo of her and kind of disappeared behind the curtains of his apartment. And so she kind of ran off, still confused, not knowing where she was. The second person was Luther, and he appeared in 1962. Now the thing is, Diego, Vanya, and number 5 all appeared in 1963, but at different times. Diego appeared in September, Vanya appeared in October, and number 5 appeared in November. And so during his time when number 5 appeared, it was like World War III had broken out. The town was destroyed. He saw this article that's saying the Soviet attacked the U.S., so the city is bombed. They're still in the same state, still in the same town, but it's all bombed out, and it's this war going on. And so he can see his siblings. They're actually fighting back. They're fighting in this war, and then all of a sudden, Hazel appears. Now, if you remember from season 2, Cha-Cha and Hazel work for the time traveling police that was trying to catch number 5, but Hazel basically had to change her heart. He met Agnes, and he ends up falling in love with her, and he just wanted to leave and just have a normal life. And so Hazel appears, and he basically tells number 5 that he has to come with him or he's going to die. And of course, number 5's like, I need to help my siblings, and he's like, you can't help them if you're dead. And so he teleports them away, and he tells him that he teleports them 10 days in the future. And this is before all hell breaks loose in this town. And he's explaining to him what he witnessed, on November 25th, 1963, what you saw was the end of the world and everybody's going to die. And I brought you back 10 days earlier so that you guys can prevent this from happening. And so he ends up giving number 5 the case, the device that helps him teleport. And he's telling him that Agnes had at this point Agnes had passed away, and he was keeping his promise to Agnes. So Agnes, they had 20 happy years together, but eventually Agnes passed away of cancer. And while they're talking, you see these guys get out of this truck, and he's number 5 is saying, okay, so what about the time agency and the whole thing? And Hazel's basically like, I don't work for them anymore. And basically, he's just a regular guy. And so these guys approach them. They end up killing Hazel, and number 5 teleports obviously away with the case. But they had actually shot up the case, so I'm assuming the device no longer works at this point. But of course, he doesn't need it because he already has the ability to teleport. So they kill the guy, and number 5 ends up teleporting back to the alley that he came from. And so he saw this building that had all these antennas, and it just looked kind of odd. So he goes into the building, and that's where he meets this guy named Elliot. And so Elliot is, freaking out, and he can see by how Elliot has this place decorated, and all these newspaper articles and clippings. Elliot clearly believes that in aliens and that there's life beyond this planet and the whole thing. And then he starts explaining to him how he came into that belief and that knowledge. And he basically said it started in 1960. And if we remember, in 1960, that was that's when Klaus first appeared. He said he was in his office, and then he saw this flash of light, and he went to see what that was about. And so that's when he saw Klaus appear. And he's saying it seemed like every year or so after, every time that flash of light, which would be them coming through one at a time, he would he would go to the window and see a new person appear. And so what you saw when Allison appeared, when he took the photo and disappeared, that was actually Elliot who took the photo of her. And so that's when number 5 realized that, okay, his siblings are still alive and they're all in the same town. He just has to locate them. And so he saw in an article they talked about this crazy man with all these knives and da-da-da. So he realized that was Diego. So so he realized that was Diego. So eventually, I'm sorry, looking at my notes. And so you see, the next thing you see is Diego. He's in an institution. He's in this group therapy session. Somebody was sharing their stories, and of course he has to be an arrogant asshole. And the doctor asked him if he had anything to add or something to that effect. He was like, well, no, I'm just letting all these feelings and these all that emotional shit just wash over me. Like, he's just such a jerk, but he's funny. And so this woman is sitting next to him, and she's kind of like antagonizing him, just kind of messing with him, right? And so Diego, they end up talking about the doctor ends up mentioning his father and how you said your childhood was an experiment, and he's playing the game because he's trying to get out of there. And Diego was basically like, I don't know who I am, but I really want to find out. This whole sob story. And then the doctor walks away, and the woman leans over like, you are so full of shit, right? And so they made some bet that if he can convince the doctor to let him out. I'm not really sure what the bet was, but that she would he would get her Jello or something, I don't know, or she would get his Jello at lunch, something crazy. So he goes over to talk to the doctor, and he wants to know when he will be able to get out. And then he starts on his, this person is going to kill Kennedy, Oswald, and he has to prevent that from happening. And of course, whatever progress he thought he made, but the doctor's like, okay, you're clearly not ready to be let out into society because you're still talking about you can tell the future, and this is the 60s. So they're looking at him like, okay, no, well, you are going to be here for an specified amount of time, so you should probably get used to it, okay? So you see Diego, he's in like the common room and doing some little arts and crafts, something. And so the woman, she's talking to him, and she's saying that she can tell that he's planning something and that she wants to, leave with him. And he's telling her, like, even if I was to leave, which I'm not, I wouldn't take you with me. And so they having a little back and forth. And then the guy comes over and tells him that he has a visitor. So he goes in, and then he sees number 5. And he's like, well, what happened? What the hell happened to you? Where's everybody? The whole conversation. And of course, Diego, being Diego, they always said he had a hero complex, which he does. He's talking about, she was like, so why, can you tell me, this is number 5, asking him, like, why, can you tell me why they found you outside of Oswald's house? And his idea, his main thing is he wants to kill Lee Harvey Oswald to keep him from shooting Kennedy. But of course, then that has severely changed the timeline and history of the country. And so number 5 was like, are you insane? Like, But anyway, we can't deal with that because we have more pressing issues like this apocalypse that's supposed to come in 10 days, and we need to stop this from happening. And Diego was basically like, yeah, after I stop Oswald, or as long as I can stop Oswald. And so number 5 was like, okay, you are just not ready. I just can't deal with this right now. We cannot be bothered with that right now. So he tells the guard that, okay, that Diego is trying to escape and lays it on thick. So of course they detained Diego and they put him in a straitjacket. They drugged the man up and all kind of stuff. So he's pissed. Obviously, Diego's going to be pissed when he sees 5 again. But 5 was like, I'm sorry, I didn't want to do this, but I just, I'm gonna come back and get you, but we need to be focused on this particular thing right now. I can't be worried about you going off on half cock on your own mission while we trying to stop this from happening. So I'll catch you later. Okay, so we then see Vanya. Okay, this family is clearly the 60s because I don't know anybody who would do that now. This family has taken her in. They have no idea who she is. She's claiming she has amnesia. I think she is actually like working for this family. She's like their nanny for their son or something. I don't know. And so the mom walks in and asks, how things were that day. And she was like, oh, we did, it was fine. I took him to see James and the Giant Peach. And the woman asked how she was doing. And she was like, I'm doing fine. I still can't, I just still have no memories. And the woman, this is a nice family. They're like, okay, well, we're going to help you create some new ones. And so they sit down to dinner. And the father is obviously a salesperson. He's talking about this big sale that he's trying to get, and how he almost has it in the bag, and he said that he had put a missing persons ad in the paper, and at this point he hasn't received any response. And she's like, well, maybe I'm somebody that no one would actually miss. And they, of course they're like, oh, that's crazy, because at this point they think she's just the sweetest person in the world, and they are really working to try to help her. And so he gets up to leave because he's saying that he wants to finish. He has a meeting with this client he's trying to sell to, and she was basically, the wife was like, well, when you come in, just be quiet because I don't want you to wake the boy up, their son. And he was like, okay, I'll see you in the morning. And I'm like, see you in the morning? I'm like, that man is definitely, he's having an affair. Who? See you in the morning? Okay, whatever. I think he's having an affair. But anywho, so Klaus he's driving down the road. The car he's in starts smoking, and the engine's on fire. The car just dies on the side of the road. So Ben gets out of the car, like, I told you the engine was on fire, and you never listened to me, and we need to go back to San Diego or San Francisco or something. I have some unfinished business. I can't, I've been following you around for 3 years. I can't follow you right anymore. So it's been 3 years, and they kind of have a back and forth. And so Klaus says to him, Ben says the reason that you said, what did you say, like, there's no reason why you always find yourself alone, because he's just an unpleasant person at times. So Klaus runs over, and now he's wrestling Ben in the street. Now keep in mind, Ben is dead. The only person that can see Ben is him. So a car drives by, and all they see is Klaus rolling around on the damn ground, kicking and flailing on his arms in the air. So he just looks like a crazy person. So even if he was trying to hitchhike, nobody in their right mind would actually pick him up, right? So, so they walk until they get to this bar. Klaus is just flamboyant. He put the flame in flamboyant. He's walking. He has no shirt on. He has this like gaudy jewelry and this long trench, coat on, and he just looks like a vagabond. He looks like a hippie. And he walks over to the bar to find out when the next bus to Dallas is, and the guy told him around 3:00 tomorrow. And so this guy calls him over to ask him if he wants to play poker. And so he's like, okay. He goes sit down to play poker. And Ben kind of set him up. Ben was still salty. Like, I'm sick of you, and you think that you can do everything on your own, and you just, you want to be this loner. So figure it out. So then he's sitting down playing cards, and he's going back and forth with his little snarky way between him and this guy. And he had this necklace, this gold necklace, and he said, the guy wanted to put up more money, and Klaus basically said, I put in everything that I have. He was like, well, you can throw that necklace in. I could have my friend melt it down and make me a belt buckle. And so he's looking at Ben, because Ben can obviously see the cars of the other people. And so Ben basically kind of reassured him in a way that that Klaus had the better hand. But of course he didn't. And of course it was so he ends up losing all his money and his necklace. And then he tried to take the main car keys, slyly take the main car keys, but the man saw him. And so he wanted Ben to intervene to restrain the guy so they can get away, and Ben was like, no. And so Klaus was like, oh, now this is the time that the time you choose to be what did he say? This is the time you choose to be difficult. Okay, so they run out and get in the man's truck. The man is he tries to stop them, but Klaus is biting the man in the arm and driving off in the man's truck. Okay, so we get back to Allison. So we get to Allison, and I'm not sure who he's supposed to be. I should have looked that up before I started doing this recap. But she's now married. And when did she come through? She came through in 61, 62. So she's probably been married for about a year or 2 years and a half or something like that to this guy. And of course, in the 60s, the civil rights movement was really big. And they're talking about this article that was in the paper. And she actually owns this hair salon where it's a meeting place for them to come together and strategize on what they're going to do as far as sit-ins and protests and those things. So they're sitting down with other black people, and they're deciding what they're going to do as the agenda as far as the sit-in. And there's a knock at the door, and so it's this white guy, and he's like, okay, so like, what are you guys doing? Like, he was concerned that they were all gathering in her beauty salon, and they were basically like, we're just here just talking. And he was like, well, yeah, I own the buildings. You own these buildings over here. Now, he basically just sticking his nose where it's below. Like, I want to know what you... Basically, I want to know what you... And he didn't say that, but the insinuation was there. Like, what are you ends planning? Why are you all gathering this time of night? What's going on? And so they basically said, well, you don't own this building, and we're going to say goodbye. And so the husband goes to close the door. And so the white guy was like, tell me you didn't just close the door on my foot. And so he made a gesture like he was about to hit her husband. So of course she intervened and basically knocked him to the ground, which of course we already know there's going to be repercussions for that, because he not only was insulted, he feels insulted, and then it was this woman who basically bested him. So we gonna continue to watch to see how that's gonna play out, but we already know there's gonna be some mess behind that. Okay, so so we go back to Diego, and Diego he wakes up and he's in a padded room. Why do I feel like I'm missing some notes? Okay, so we go back. So we go to Luther. Luther is now, he works for this gangster, and he's in this ring, he's fighting this guy. He clearly has an unfair advantage, but he's allowing this guy to feel like he's getting the best of him to make it look legitimate. And then the guy he works for gives him the nod, and he ends up taking the guy out. So of course he wins. The guy attacks him with a knife. He ends up breaking this guy's arm. So we don't see the kind of dutiful, moral Luther in this episode. He's like basically just trying to, he's been trying to get back, because at this point, the only person that knows that all of them are alive is number 5. For all intents and purposes, they all think that they're all by themselves. Like either their siblings are somewhere else, or their siblings have died. And so he has basically resigned himself to the life that he has as this, like, the muscle for this gangster. And so he won the fight, and of course the man gave him the money. He hands the money to the guy, and the guy says, okay, we'll bring the car around. Okay, so Vanya, she comes out, it's the middle of the night, and she goes into the kitchen, I guess to get water or whatever, and she saw Sissy, and Sissy was holding something behind her back. But of course, Vanya was like, are you smoking? And so, of course, now they're like in the bar and they're sitting and talking. And Sissy was like, I'm just, how she's saving her money for her escape, or, just as a backup plan. And Vanya was like, well, what do you mean? She was like, no matter, Carl is a good guy. And for all we know at this point, Carl is a good guy. And, but even good guys leave or die. And so women eventually end up having to fend for themselves. And so she was saying how she takes every penny that she has and she stashes it somewhere so that when she needs it, in the event that something happens, she'll have this money set aside. And so, but she was like, Vanya was asking her, like, what does she want to be? And she said she wanted to be a counter girl at one of the department stores. And she talked about her memory of her going to the store with her dad and how elegant she thought the women looked, and the whole thing. And Vanya basically told her that she was plenty elegant. They had a nice little conversation. And so Diego, so he wakes up. He's now in. He's been drugged. Obviously, he's waking up. The drugs are wearing off, but he's in a straitjacket in a padded room. So what he does, he dislocates his shoulder so he can get the straitjacket off, and he's able to pick the lock, and he gets out. So now he's trying to make his way out of the hospital. He runs into an orderly who attacks him. And then this woman, the woman who we don't know her name yet, who wanted to escape with him, she comes to his defense, and she ends up knocking the orderly out and helping him out. She ends up popping his shoulder back into place, and at this time, it alerts. Now we go back to the guys who shot Hazel. So they are now at the hospital. They've killed, I guess, the guy in the office. I don't know if he would be considered a director of the facility. I don't know. They killed him. And they are now making their way through this facility to locate Diego. Eventually they see him. They start shooting the place up. Of course, now they're making a mad dash. They've run into some cops. This is Diego. And this woman, she disarmed the cops. And basically the cops are now incapacitated. And they get away. I think we're going to find that woman is some kind of spy or something, because it's just way too convenient that she has attached herself to Diego, and you can clearly see that she knows how to fight. So I'm thinking we're going to find out that there's more to this woman than just some nut he met in an asylum, in an institution. But we're going to leave that there. Okay, so they get out. And so by the time the guys make it outside, they're long gone, but all the patients that have been let out of their rooms, they all just kind of milling around, dancing and doing their own thing. But of course, Diego and this woman are long gone. So what's the next thing? Okay, so we're back at Luther. They're back at this club. It's like this bar / strip club. And he's talking to one of the women. I don't know if there's a term for them, but these are the women. They dress really provocative, but they walk around and they get to take the drink orders and all that kind of stuff. But he's kind of talking to her and is like asking her, about the guys that are talking to, I guess would be considered his boss. And she was like, well, they're just talking about something, some deal is going on. And he was like, well, was he giving you a hard time? She's like, no, it's all fine. It's all fine. Everything is good. And he said, but I am concerned about this kid by the stage. And so he's like, kid? And so he looks over and he's like, uh-huh. So he walks over. And he obviously knows it's number 5, and so they start talking. And number 5 asks him, "How long have you been here?" And he said, "A year." And he's saying that I know what it's like. That he's saying that we need to, get basically want to get all the people together because they didn't actually stop the apocalypse. It's there. They have 10 days to do what it is that they need to do, and so. He just doesn't, Luther is just unmoved. He gets up he's like, I have to go. And so he's saying, I know what it's like to be alone. Of course he does, because remember he spent like 50 years, 60 years in this other timeline before he came back to his family. And while he's talking to Luther, you see this flashes of what's going on with the other people. You had Klaus, who eventually gets arrested for stealing a man's truck. And then you see Allison, she's at home with her husband, and they're kind of on the couch watching TV. And you see Vanya, she's still sitting with Sissy, and they're talking. And so he's basically telling him, I know what it's like, what you're going through, but we're family, and we need to come together. And Luther's last words was, I don't give a shit. And so Luther he's having a difficult time. Like I said, for all intents and purposes, they all believe that their siblings were all dead. They felt they have been living their lives as if they were on their own for however long they've been in these timelines. And for Luther, he's just, I think he got to the point where he just came to terms with what his life was. And he's just resigned himself to that's what his life is going to be at this point. And so, it's very sad. You can see that he's hurt and he's angry, and it just is what it is for now. But that's basically how this episode ends. I will try to review 2. I'm trying to do 2 and 3. Try to do 2 so I can get through these as quickly as possible. But I'm going to end this here, and I will talk to you guys later.